Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Matt. So this morning we're going to continue on and finish these next 2 days. Finish up our devotion topic. Our devotion topic, which is pretty much entitled accessibility. Right? God being accessible. Um, for us to understand God, to understand who He is, we have to understand how we can gain access to Him. We gain access to God through our prayers, through our situations, through the things that we go through in life. That's how we tend to gain access to God. Oh, wow. That's what's up. That's what's up, man. Thanks. I appreciate that. That's cool. That's cool. I hope if you tell them, they can always find me on all social medias. They can find me on the same thing, Clubs Ministry. That's what's up. That's great. That's great. So today, we're going to talk about two different types of access to God. There's easy access and then there's hard access. Hard access is a little bit more difficult because we actually create the hard access to God. We create that by creating um, creating boundaries that stops us from getting to God. We create these boundaries. We create these walls that slows our process down, that stops us from being able to get to God. And we often do that because of the fact that we overthink things. We overthink things. That usually happens in any situation. When you overthink something, when you think about something so much, and you start to question and doubt. Um, that usually happens. It usually takes place when you're looking at something and you're saying to yourself, okay, I want to tackle it this way, but then you end up tackling it a different way, and then you get to the point where you're like, okay, well, I still don't know, if this is where I want to be. I still don't know if this is where I want to accomplish. Mocha, how you doing? I still don't know if this is where I want to see myself. Naja, how you doing? So then you overthink it. You make things complicated. Because you make things overly complicated, it makes it harder to come to God because you're overthinking things too much. So this morning, that's what we're going to be focused on. We're going to be focused on two different types of access, easy or hard access. Let's pray. Lord God in heaven, we just want to thank you, Lord, for giving us this time, this moment to spend with you. We just want to thank you for waking us up this morning to see a new day. Lord God, thank you for helping us to sleep and rest and be able to relax. Dear Father, I pray, Lord, that as we go into this conversation, dear Father, that we will continue to look to you, dear Lord, for understanding and wisdom, and we will continue to lean on you to give us the needed things in our lives that will help us to grow and to be more like you. Father, we just want to thank you for all that you've done and all you continue to do. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. Easy or hard access? Easy or hard access? I want to turn to Sylvia. Whenever I think of easy or hard access, I usually think of a few things. Think of a few things that actually come up in the conversation. When you have easy access to something, that means you have a a means to get in. That reminds me of a job, right? When you work at a job, when you have a job, you're able to gain access to that job. Right? They give you a key card. You're able to swipe into the building. You can walk in and out the building however you please. You got access to that building. Now, when you don't have a card, if you don't work at this building, then you have limited access to the building. Yeah, you can walk to the front door and everything like that, but you can't go as far as the front door because if you have no business in the building, and you have nothing to do with the building, so you have no access to certain things in the building. As a result, you are constantly going to be put out because you do not have access to this building. Kind of reminds you of when it comes to being a Christian. Oftentimes, you're told because you're not part of God's family that you don't belong here. You're not part of God's factor. You don't belong here. And that's far from the truth. You are part of God's family because you are his children, right? We are his children. And because we are his children, we have access to him. We have access to God through our prayers, through our actions, through our worship. We have access to God. But sometimes we get so confused and we get so diluted in what the society has said that we don't even see what's in front of us. See, the Bible says in Matthew 6, verse 33, that you must seek first the kingdom of God. See, by you seeking first the kingdom of God, you're eliminating all of the hard access that you will always find yourself in. You are eliminating all of the hardship that stops you from getting to God. Because you are eliminating all those things, you are removing all those things, it allows you to see and to find God. See, when it says seek first the kingdom of God, then the next step is to search and to seek for his righteousness. See, these are different things that are going to enable you to see God, enable you to be with God, enable you to finally find God. This is a process that takes a lifetime to achieve and to accomplish. See, some of us, we want to accomplish this overnight. We want to accomplish this as fast as we can. But I want to remind you that it doesn't work that way. Jet life, how you doing? It doesn't work that way. You have to take your time. And sometimes by taking your time, you may think as though that you are not looking for God in all the right places. You're not searching for God the right way. And as a result, you start to get a little bit sad, or you start to be discouraged at the fact that you haven't found God how you want to find God. Dr. Billion Dollars, what's up? But I want to remind you and encourage you this morning that you will be able to find God. And that the access to him doesn't have to be hard. But you see, some of us were hard-headed. See, when I was growing up as a kid, my mother used to always tell me that I'm hard-headed. Not only am I hard-headed, I'm stubborn. So if you're hard-headed and you're stubborn, you just have a bad situation altogether. You just have a bad situation altogether. And it's because of the fact that you are hard-headed and you're stubborn. Because you don't want to listen to instruction just yet. You don't want to look at instruction just yet. You don't want to find yourself, you don't want to find yourself searching for instruction because you rather use your own instruction. You rather use your own methods, your own means. And by you using your own methods and your own means, you will never be able to find yourself in the right position because you are constantly looking in all the wrong places. That's what makes your journey hard. That's what makes your situation harder because you're looking in all the wrong places. You're looking in all the wrong directions. And that's what makes the access even harder when the access was always intended to be easy. The access was always intended to be easy. But we rather make it hard. Why do you think that? Why do you think we rather make our situation harder? Is it because we like things to be a challenge? Is it because we like things to be difficult, awkward? Ephesians 4, verse 28. Ephesians 4, verse 28 basically says, let the thief no longer steal, but rather let him labor. It says, let the thief no longer steal, rather let him labor. See, when a thief is stealing, a thief is looking for easy access to get into certain places. See, the thief is not looking to work to earn money to purchase the things that they want to purchase. They would rather steal money, and by stealing money, they will get the things that they always wanted. By stealing items, they will get the things that they want, but they don't earn it by working hard for it. As a result, by you not working hard for it and you stealing it, you're trying to find things at easy access, but you're going to find out very soon that the way that you're going and the direction that you're going, you are creating it a harder, you are creating a harder means to get to where you're trying to go. And thieves don't really realize that until they get caught. Hey, Maker Mandy, how you doing? Good to see you. Zammy. Good to see you this morning. As a result of you trying to steal your way into certain areas, you create a more difficult avenue for yourself because you're filling that avenue with things that you did not purchase on your own, things you did not earn on your own. And by you doing that, you're now allowing eyes to watch you. And when you allow eyes to watch you, then you start to find more people who you didn't want to have your attention now having your attention because you went ahead and you started to take things that didn't belong to you. You started to steal things that didn't belong to you. See, that's why the Bible is saying right here that let the thief no longer steal. See, once a thief comes to the realization that they can no longer steal, that they should not steal, then they can start the process of gaining access once again to God. They can start the process of making their access point easier as opposed to being hard. See, that's what happens when you look to find the access and you're stealing to get to where you want to get to. You're creating harder access for yourself because now you have to get through the different barriers that you did created for yourself. See, sometimes we want to come to God and we think that because of all of our baggage, it's hard for us to come to God. While God is saying to drop all your baggage, just come straight to me. But sometimes we can't let go of bad habits. See, bad habits stops us from gaining access to God because if we have to get to the point where we're balancing the two, where we're saying, okay, well, I want to have access of God, but I also can't stop stealing. I want access of God, but I can't stop looking at porn. I want access to God, but I can't stop lying. I can't stop stealing. I can't stop. You're actually making the decision. You're not balancing anything. If you have to think about whether or not you want God or something else, you've already made your decision because you cannot say, I want God and I want something else. Because if you want God, then that should be all you need. Once you have God and once you want God, that is all you need. That's why it says, but rather let him labor, do honest work with his own hands. Because once you let go of stealing, once you've dropped stealing from the equation, then you can now focus on doing an honest day's work. You can now focus on doing what's right. You can then focus on making better choices, better decisions, because now you're letting go of the thing that was stopping you and giving you hard access to God. The rest of the verse says, so that he may have something to share with anyone in need. You see, once you start to make those changes in your life, you start to gain those access points, right? Once you start to make those decisions that makes you a better person, then you can look to share that with someone else. Vanessa, how you doing today? How you doing? You can look to share that with someone else. You can look to give that to someone else. See, someone else may be in the same bind that you're in, maybe in the same predicament that you're in. And because they're in the same predicament that you're in, they're looking for you for guidance and direction, believe it or not. See, sometimes we believe that nobody's watching us and nobody's looking at us to see what we're doing. But I want you to understand that people are watching you. People are looking at you, especially if you say that you're a Christian, especially if you say that you follow God and you follow the Bible. People are going to be looking at you even more intently because they want to see exactly where are you going and what are you trying to show. See, that's why whenever I give these devotions, I don't want nobody to look at me as some perfect specimen of some perfect person, the ideal person. I am not the ideal person. I am far from it. I am just a man trying to follow God and trying to follow his word. And that gets hard over time. It gets difficult every single day. I'm not going to lie and tell you that once you start to follow God, everything kind of falls in place and everything becomes easy. No, things becomes difficult. Things get harder now because of the fact that we live in a sinful world. And because we live in a sinful world and things get harder, it's hard enough to try to live a decent life as a regular person. But when you try to live a life where God is involved, it gets much difficult. But that doesn't change the access to God. It doesn't change the access to God. In fact, it makes it easier. It makes it easier. It makes it easier to have access to God. It makes it easier to see the access of God. 2 Timothy 2 verse 1 says, "For God gave us a spirit not to fear, but of power, love, and self-control." What do you think that means? God gives us this power. There's a reason why God gave us this power. There's a reason why God is showing us this power, because he wants us to know that despite what we may think, despite how much we think that we are not on the right track, no matter how much you think that you are not on the right road, God is trying to show you and tell you that you are on the right road, and the perfect road, the road that he wants you to be on. That's the road that you're on. See, God wants you to know that this is not going to be the end for you. This is just the beginning. God wants you to know that where you're going and the direction in life that you're heading is not a direction where you're gonna be saying to yourself, man, I wish I knew better. I wish I was going on a different road. I wish I had all of those things that my friend has. I wish I had all of those advantages my friend has. God might be saying to you, well, it's not in the cards right now for you to have those advantages. It's not in the cards for you to have that type of access. Because even though that access might look easy to you, that access is actually difficult. It's harder. That access is much harder than what you think. You might think that that access is going to be easy for you to get in and it's going to be easy for you to accomplish and get through. And God is saying that no, that's not the case. That's not what this is about. That access is not going to be easy for you. And God doesn't want you to feel as though that you're going to be able to just walk through and accomplish and get everything that you want just because you follow him. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes you got to work hard to get what you want. Sometimes you got to work hard to get what you need. Sometimes you have to suffer a little bit. And nobody likes to suffer. Nobody likes to suffer because we all want things easy. We want things to be handed to us. We want things to be given to us. See, we often see people who go on YouTube and on Facebook and stuff like that. They get thousands upon thousands, millions of views. And, we might be saying to ourselves, man, what am I doing wrong? How come I'm not getting that type of success? How come I'm not the next overnight success as some of these people are? But we don't see the hard work that goes into what they do. We don't see the hardship that goes into what they do. We don't know what they go through in life. We don't know, you know, excuse me. We don't know what difficulties they face. We don't know. We have no clue. And because we have no clue of that, we can't make that assumption. We can't make those type of assumptions, thinking that, okay, well, they didn't do anything to earn or deserve the things that they have. We can't make those distinctions. So when we talk about having easy access or hard access to God, we have to remember and understand that easy or hard access is your decision. That is your decision. Nobody can force you to have that type of decision. Nobody can force you to have to see those type of decisions from that direction. Nobody can force you to do that. We can only encourage you to try to make the right choice, try to make the right decision. We can only help you with your choice and decision, but we can't force you to do anything. God doesn't force you to do anything. Some of us believe that it's God who's pulling the strings when it comes to different things in life, when it comes to different decisions in life. And God is not pulling no strings. God ain't pulling no string. God is watching and observing and seeing how things fall into place. See, but sometimes we have to ask God to intervene. We have to pray and ask God to intervene because sometimes we don't even know what we want for ourselves. Sometimes we don't even know what's best for ourselves. And because we don't know what's best for ourselves, we need to pray and ask God to give us some guidance and some direction. When God gives us guidance and direction, then everything kind of falls in place. Everything looks easier over time. Everything looks better over time. See, in Proverbs 13, verse 14, it says, the soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing. Excuse me. The soul of a sluggard craves and gets nothing. Why do you think the soul of a sluggard craves and gets nothing? Because the sluggard doesn't move with any intentions. The slug doesn't go with any pace. It moves slow because it is slow. See, sometimes the access that we're looking for when it comes to God, we wind up making it hard because we're the type of sluggard that just takes our time and we're slow at everything. And when we need to put up, put on the, pick up the pace, when we need to pick up the pace, we don't necessarily see a need for that because we're saying to ourselves, oh, well, God will understand. We're saying to ourselves, God will understand my situation. God will get me. God understands me. And yeah, you're absolutely right. God does understand you. But you have to understand yourself as well. You got to understand where your limit is. You have to understand where your purpose is. Sometimes we don't even understand where our purpose is because we are too busy trying to make up excuses as to we can't, why we can't go to church in the morning, why we can't um, help those in need. Why we can't show love. Those are some of the questions that we ask ourselves. These are some of the questions that we must ask ourselves. Because at the end of the day, only one person can answer those questions. Only one person can make those choices. Only one person can make those things fit, and that's you. Sometimes you may come on the broadcast looking for answers. And I hope that I'm able to show you some answers. But at the end of the day, what I'm talking about means nothing if you're not willing to put it in action. None of what I'm talking about will ever make sense if you're not willing to put that in action. If you don't want your access to God to become hard, you have to allow His Holy Spirit to work within you. You have to allow His Holy Spirit to be in your life. Not only to be in your life, but to help you in your process. This morning, I want us to take a look at an example of gaining access to God. We'll crack open the Word this morning. Look at a story from the Bible, a story that talks about easy or hard access to God. Now, we're going to look at Judges. We're going to look at Judges 13, actually. Now, Judges 13, we see a family conversation regarding a family. Now, this family is very, very submissive to God. They were submissive to God in everything. They were honest with their tithes. They made sure that Nanhar, from the clan of the Danates, and his wife, who was childless, unable to give birth. The angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, "You are barren and childless, but you are going to become pregnant and give birth to a son." Now, an angel came to this woman and told her that your access has been denied multiple times when it came to giving birth to a son. Your access has been denied when it comes to giving birth to a child. But I'm going to tell you this morning that you are going to gain access to giving birth. And not only are you going to gain access in giving birth, you are also going to give birth to a son. And this son is going to go on to do great things. Now, this is verse 4. Now, see to it that you drink no wine or other fermented drinks, and you do not eat anything unclean. You will become pregnant and have a son whose head is never to be touched by a razor, because the boy is going to be a Nazarite and dedicated to God from the womb. He will take the lead in delivering Israel from the hands of the Philistines. You imagine an angel coming to you and giving you all of this information all at once? All this information pretty much saying, well, listen, this is the situation, this is what's going to happen. You are going to become pregnant after being barren for so many years. You see, those type of things just sounds impossible nowadays. When a woman is barren and she cannot have kids, and then all of a sudden an angel of the Lord comes to her and say, yeah, you're going to have a child. And not only are you going to have a child, but this child is going to be special. This child is going to be special because this child is going to deliver his people from the hands of the Philistines. And he is going to be strong, and he is going to be without any type of weakness. Now, this story is about the story of Samson. Now, Samson, we know the story of Samson where, he has a whole lot of hair on his head. He's strong. He does all these incredible feats, and he gets into a situation where he loses his access to God. For years, Samson has been doing great things on behalf of God. He has been destroying the enemies of the people of Israel. He has been destroying the enemies because of him. Then he has believed that it was only him, and he has nothing to really thank God for, because he believed that it was because of him in the first place. So God is going to show us exactly where this story goes because of the fact that Samson decided to send this story down the path that it was going. Samson made those bad choices. Samson made those bad decisions. He created a hard access for himself as opposed to easy access for himself. He had the easy path, the easy road, because he was already ordained from the womb to be dedicated to God. His parents did exactly what they needed to do in order to dedicate him to God. And once they dedicated to God, everything else was left up to Samson. And all Samson had to do was to know and to trust God, that it's God who gives him the strength to do these incredible feats of strength, that it was God who gave him the power to overcome his enemy, that it wasn't because of him, it wasn't because of his sheer will, it was because of what God has done. But he forgot about that. He said, "See how you doing?" See, we look at Judges 14. Samson went down, this is verse 1. Samson went down to Tamar and saw a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, I have seen a Philistine woman in Tamar, and now get and now get her for me as my wife. His father and mother replied, Isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives and among all of your people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? See, so we start to see the seeds of Samson's decline to go into that hard access point. See, he started to mingle and mix with the enemy. See, his birth was to bring a stop to the Philistines destroying the Israelites, and now he's going to lay in bed with the Philistines. Samson said to his father, Get her for me. She is the right one for me. His parents did not know that this was from the Lord, who is seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines, for at the time they were ruling over Israel. So, long story short, Samson went ahead and married this woman, and this woman becomes his wife. Now, this woman is also sitting and sleeping with the enemy as well, because she is going to help the Philistines actually destroy. And Chances, how you doing? She is actually going to put aside um, her her love for Samson and do something that's going to change the story narrative. She's going to try to get his head cut. She's going to try to find out what is his weakness. So she tries several attempts to try to get Samson to uncover what his true weakness is, what his weak point is. She's going to try everything she can to do this. And what she's going to do, she's actually going to trick him and fool him. She says, well, how on earth do you lose your strength? Dominican, how you doing this morning? How do you lose your strength? He says, well, you need to tie me up in certain type of lashes. And then once she does that, the Philistine comes and he rips him open and tears him apart. So she has been trying different ways to try to create a way for him. And that's exactly what her motives are, Delilah. That's her motives for Samson. And Samson is so blinded by love that he doesn't see what's actually being done to him. He doesn't see what's actually being created in stopping him from becoming the person that he is always intended to be. See, this is exactly what's happening. We see here, we read here in verse 6, we are looking at Judges 16, verse 6, and it says, So Delilah said to Samson, Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied and subdued. Samson answered her, If anyone ties me up with 7 fresh bowstrings that has not been dried, I will become weaker than any other man. Then the ruler of the Philistine brought the 7 fresh bowstrings. So basically, everything that Samson has said to her that would make him weak, she turned around and do it. See, these are red flags that should have went off to Samson. The minute she asked that question, he should have been suspecting her. The minute she went ahead and got the thing that he said was going to make him weak, that's the time he should have expected something. He should have been looking at something. But instead, he was so blinded by love, so blinded by what was more important, that he didn't even see the fact that she was trying to trick him. And then she says something to him that makes him break down. And this is verse 15. She says to him, and she said to him, How can you say I love you when you won't confide in me? This is the third time you have fooled me, made a fool of me, and haven't told me the secret of your great strength. Which, with such nagging, she pounded him day after day until he was sick to death of it. Verse 18. No, sorry, verse 17. So he told her everything. No razor has ever been used on my head, he said, because I have been a Nazarite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me and I would become as weak as any other man. So what do you think Delilah did? exactly what he said. And because of what she did, she cut off the locks from his head. And by doing that, the Philistine was able to grab him, and he realized that the access that he once had to God that was easy has now become hard. See, he started to transition from the easy access all the way to hard access. And every single occasion that he started to leave and forget what God had already ordained in his mother to him, he started to forget that because of the fact that he was falling in love, he was smitten with Delilah. And because he was smitten with Delilah and Delilah knew how to nag, she ended up, he ended up forgetting everything that the Lord has taught him and the Lord has shown him, and he became just as weak as any other man. In verse 21, actually verse 20, she called and said, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He woke up from his sleep and thought, I'll go out before and shake myself free. And he did not know that the Lord had left him. Samson didn't know that the Lord had left him. Samson didn't know that he was now at the hard access to God. He now had a harder access to God because God wasn't there with him. When God is not there with you, then everything is going to start to get harder. The hard access that you are now experiencing is because that the Lord is not next to you. The Lord is not near you because you have left the side of the Lord. Remember, the Lord doesn't go nowhere. You are the one that leaves the side of the Lord. So you have to come back to the Lord. You have to come back to the Father in order for you to have that easy access again. But that access is going to get hard. I never said that the access is going to be shut off from you altogether. It's just going to be more difficult. See, it's just like anything else. See, you can learn how to ride a bike and you can be real comfortable in riding a bike. But what if you get a bigger bike? That doesn't mean you can't ride the bike or learn how to ride the bike. It just means that the bike is going to be harder now because it's a bigger bike. You can learn how to drive a car. You can learn how to drive a car on your beat up Honda Civic. And your Honda Civic is so beat up and it's so easy for you to drive it and have access to it. But then what if you start to make a little bit more money? You say you want to get a newer car and you get a SUV. Now the SUV is a lot different from your little Civic. The SUV has more features. It's much bigger. You're higher on the road. So where you used to see things at a certain high level, you're now seeing things from a greater high level. But guess what? That doesn't mean that it's going to be impossible for you to drive. It's just going to be hard at this time. But it's going to start to get easy again once you start to go back to what you remember in driving, right? What you remember in riding a bike. That's what's going to make it easier over time. See, once you start to remember those things start to get easier for you. And that's what happened to Samson. Samson forgot the easy stuff when it comes to God. And because of the fact that he has left God's side and he went to dwell with the Philistines and fell in love with a Philistine woman. And this Philistine woman kept asking, what is the source of the strength? And he kept fooling and lying to her. And then finally he gave in and told her the truth and told her everything that was going to make him strong and that what made him strong. And because he told her everything, she went ahead and got things taken care of. So that way the Philistines will come in and attack, and Samson wouldn't be able to do anything because the Lord had left him. And verse 21, it said, then the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Giza, and binded him in bronze shackle, then set him to grind grain in the prison. But the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. We see the death of Samson in dramatic form. We see here in verse 28, they, all of the people of Philistines, all the officials, all the rich people, they wanted to make a mockery out of Samson. For years, this man has been destroying our armies, making life difficult for us. But now we've captured him, and we're going to put him in front of everybody and ridicule and make fun of him. Samson had no eyes. He literally said, listen, man, put me up against the pillars so I can feel the pillars that support the temple, but I may lean against it. So he thought nothing of it. Yeah, sure, he ain't strong no more. Let's put him right there. Verse 28, Samson prayed to the Lord and said, Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more. Let me, with one blow, get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Then Samson reached towards the 2 central pillars which the temple stood, braced himself against it, his right hand one, his left hand on the other. And Samson said, Let me die with the Philistines. Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more than he did when he was alive. It's a very sad way for the story to end. But at the end, he realized that the access point to God, Isabella, how you doing this morning? That the access point to God was not impossible, was not cut off forever. It was hard, yes. The access to God was hard, definitely. But that didn't mean that it was no longer easy for him to get access back to God. You notice that all he had to do was to pray, and then he got the access back to God that he needed. All you have to do is pray, and you can get back to the easy side of God. Sometimes we feel like we've made so many mistakes over time, that we've made so many bad decisions, bad moves over time, that we don't have the access to come back to God. We don't have the access to come to the Father. That it's over for us. But I want you to realize that it's not over for you. It is not going to be over for you. That all you need to do is to pray and ask God to forgive you of your sin and to bring you back to his good graces. And all it is that you're literally coming back to God, and God is saying, what took you so long? What took you so long to come back to me? What made you think that I was going to shut you out and I was going to close the door on you and I was going to make things impossible for you? Yeah, I was going to close and push you, and you were going to be, you were going to leave my side, but I was going to create to you an easy access. The easy access is always there, but you decided to make things hard. So the hard access was going to be your way, but that was going to be the way for you to learn that between you and me, there is no distance. There's no distance between me and you. All you have to do is pray and ask me to open my doors back to you. My doors have always been open. You just need to come through. You need to walk through it. See, I learned that lesson a long time ago, because I used to think, because of the decisions I made and the bad mistakes that I made, that God was going to push me away forever, and God wasn't going to bring me back to his good grace. And then I realized that God was always going to bring me back home, because he loved me. I realized that God was always going to make sure that I was going to be safe, because he loved me. I realized that God was always going to save me, because he loved me. That same love is available to us today. Just because you made a couple mistakes in your past, just because you made a couple of bad moves, bad decisions, doesn't mean that it's the end for you. It's only the beginning. Only the beginning. So this morning, as we remember what God has done for Samson in his time of need, and even though Samson messed up, he was still able to come back to the Father. And the Father is still going to forgive him, despite the wrong that he did. This time we're going to do our roll call. We're going to pray, and we're going to close. Ruth, good to see you this morning. Auntie Sylvia, good to see you. My brother David, good to see you. My brother Matt, good to see you. Emily, good to see you this morning. Mother Marisol, blessings, good to see you. Fatima, good to see you. Isabella, good to see you. Enchantress, good to see you. Sassy Kate, good to see you this morning. Mocha, good to see you this morning. Dominicana, good to see you this morning. Muhammad, good to see you. Makeup by Mandy, blessings, good to see you. Jet Life, good to see you. Naja, good to see you. Let's pray. Paul, my brother, good to see you. Let's pray. Father God, we just want to thank you, Lord, for giving us this time, this moment, this opportunity to spend time in your word. Father, we just want to thank you, Lord, for giving us access to you, dear Lord. Even when some of the access points in life may become hard, may become difficult for us to connect to. Lord, I pray that you will continue to be with us and continue to connect with us, dear Father. Help us to understand your word, your teaching, dear Lord. Help us to understand that in life, things might get hard, things might be difficult, but we still have a Father that is willing to see us through, that is willing to help us in our time of need. And Lord, we just want to thank you and love you for that. We thank you for your mercies and your guidance, your blessings, dear Lord. Continue to strengthen us and keep us, Father God, for all that you've done and for all that we will ever become, dear Lord. Thank you, Lord. We pray in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. All right, folks. So once again, I want to thank you guys for joining me this morning. I pray that you guys have been blessed by this morning's devotion. And again, may the Lord bless and keep you guys. Have a great day. Have a blessed day. Have a strong day. Happy Sabbath. You guys take care.